My man, here we are. Lukas, such a pleasure to have you. We've had a few beautiful conversations ever since meeting a few months ago now, and I'm actually really excited to have one that is actually recorded for the world to hear. So, welcome and thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you, man. Really a pleasure being here. Like you said, we had a lot of exciting conversations, so let's have another one.
Exactly. Let's have another one for the world to hear. And it's like before going into the conversations, I usually try to plan, all right, what's the best angle? What's the best way to approach this? But for you, especially, there's so many of those. There's so many where we could get started.
The universe sings.
The idea that just came up while we are chatting before was like the inner journey is a big subject of ours, and there is no better trigger for inner growth than the Web3 space, because it goes in so many places, it goes so fast, and we've both had a pretty, let's call it, interesting past year with a lot of lessons. And I'd love if we could start here with, like, how was the past few months? How did you live through Web3? How was your inner journey for that part of the path of the journey?
Such a big question. I mean, the last few months, it wasn't connected that much to Web3. I mean, what I'm doing, I'm working with people in Web3 and I'm doing my own business. So it wasn't related that much. However, like looking back with like what happened with the market and like with my journey being originally from Germany, and like part of the reason why I came was like the tax things and a lot of paperwork. And the bottom line, to give a bit of perspective, anyway, I'm 42, and for 41 years I've been like super stable, never had therapy or like any troubles mentally or something. And just last year in September was kind of the first time I had like a burnout and a real depressive phase. And that was a big hallway. I can already look back at it. And that was connected with like everything I'm doing in my life. There was so many things moving. One was like getting into full-time coaching, and since the beginning of last year, and then not having a home, having financial instability, having a lot of paperwork in 2 countries at the same time, and privately it's just all hit the fan at the same time. And eventually even me, which I never thought possible, was like breaking then in September. And we connected back then a little bit later, just after that, I think. That's like the bigger nutshell.
The bigger story
what happened to me, and in the last year. And that was like in September, and then I like recovered, and I just noticed like I'm coming back to energy, and it still is a process of getting back into the vibe. I notice like I got energy and I go up and down. It's a bit like, it feels a bit like borderline, which is like crazy enough, because that's totally not who I am generally. Like I've been working with myself and like calming down and things so much. And right now I find myself in a position where everything is moving and I just have to take care of myself. And that's what I find with a lot of people as well. And what we share on our way as well. We talked a lot about it, right? Just like this most precious thing we all have is like our own health, mental and physical.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, you mentioned that you're a coach and you focus specifically on, well, you would like to bring your coaching specifically to the Web3 space where it is extremely needed. And as coaches, our own experience guides who we are as coaches, because obviously you draw from your own experience, and that's what you bring to the people that you help out. And I think that part of the maturing phase of Web3 is that people are going to have to start taking care of themselves, because longevity is the name of the game. You're not just doing this to make a few $100K and then retire. That's just not how it happens, because the emotional impact is huge. The stress impact is huge. All of that is huge. And like, how did you, as a coach, decide that you wanted to go in the Web3 space, and what's the impact that you want to have in it?
You're polymath, and me too. I recently learned this other name, multi-potentialite. So I've always been doing a lot of things. So my original background, I was studying computer science and business and went into consulting back then. And at the same time, I've always been like exploring the mind, meditation and yoga and teaching and training a lot and being in the whole talent development and leadership coaching realm in the corporate world. And I always loved it. That's been the theme in my life. Like I always loved connecting with people, understanding people and understanding interaction between people and seeing so many organizations as a consultant and then later in my professional life as well. Like, and it's all doesn't work out in teams. It's always the same. Like people come together, communication gets lost, personal things get in the way, ego gets in the way, and there's so much friction and loss and suffering actually. Like people suffer all the time because there is no connection. And that has always been like since I was a kid, actually, really interesting. Like when I was observing conversations between my parents and other people, I always felt I'm spotting things in between people like other people don't see it. I was like, it's been really weird. Some kind of like enlightenment moments. And all that, then 2021, I was kind of done in my corporate job of like talent development and coaching people in the corporate environment. And I felt now it's time for something like bigger and like a break. And it all came together. I moved to Portugal. And at the same time, because I'm interested in so many things, I had been following the crypto space since 2018, maybe since like that hype cycle. I jumped in again, big emotional roller coaster there, jumped in when it was up, lost a lot of money, normal story, and dealt with the emotions and stuff. However, I was like following a few projects and diving into the technology and the psychology and the philosophy behind it, and just believe, as we all do, right, in the potential to change the world. And then it all came naturally together to like get out of the corporate world, noticing that there is there as well so much needed to make teams and people work both at the same time. And then I came to Lisbon, was going to the blog for some co-working, talking to people. First time I ever got real people behind all the memes and the projects. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's real people. That's exciting. And it just struck me. It was like, so how is it going with your communication? How are you doing? And people were like suffering, burnt out, overworked, and teams were not working out. And I had this big impulse of, man, I really got to make a big ayahuasca or psychedelic retreat, take you out in nature and make a big reset with all of you. And that's how my journey started. Then I was like planning a little retreat and then spreading the word a bit, and it all emerged pretty naturally. And we ended up having like one weekend retreat. And that's where I really got to know a few more. I worked 3 people. And then from there, I started coaching 3 of the people who were in the retreat. And from there, things started rolling, like beginning of last year.
That's really cool. I actually didn't know that was how things started for you. And now that you put it in perspective, I've known this for a while, but it's become even more clear, is that you don't bet on projects, you bet on people. And so if the people who you are betting on don't get along together, and relationships can be strained by a lot of factors. And it just so happens that in our industry, there's 10x the factors that there are in any other types of industry, because there's more volatility, there's more uncertainty, there's a real time feeling to it, a real time state. Like having launched the token a year and a half ago, I can tell you firsthand that it is incredibly stressful, because you wake up and you know that there's the price of your token that's changed. Sometimes it's for the better, sometimes it's for the worse. For NFT projects, it's the same. And so part of this decentralization thing is that there's no weekends, there's no after hours trading. So there's no real respite. And you have people in your community from all across the world, and you have people in your team from all across the world. So the first time in the morning that you open Discord, you can have a message that's going to fuck up your day, or you're going to see, oh my god, the price has crashed 20%, which can happen for younger projects, because you will see 20%, 30%, 50% volatility days, and all of this. Like if I have the stress trigger and then I go talk to my team and I still carry the burden of that stress trigger, and then all of this accumulates week over week over week, and you don't have the reset that you're talking about, then at some point it's going to implode for sure. And that's why you're here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nicely put into words. And it's really crazy because our ability to decide really diminishes with the amount of stress we put on ourselves. Cognitively, we know. I mean, it's not
Mm,
big news. It's not complicated, right? But the moment you're in stress, you're in this fight or flight, you have a narrow vision, you're not open for possibilities, you're not open for people, and you decide poorly. This is just what
yeah.
happens. And if your calendar is just like packed from morning till night, and I mean, you're the founder of a project, and that's normally how their calendars look like. Like for them, it's so hard to squeeze anything else in there. And there's like so little space to like zoom out and think the bigger
And
picture, what's
breathe.
really important. And I love this concept, and I'm talking with my clients a lot about it, like slow down to speed up. Like you got to take your time to zoom out and really decide what's important. And then kind of decide is like the ladder you're running up is actually the wall, the right one you're leaning it towards.
I actually wish that more people were mindful of their own cycles because that's what you're describing. Sometimes you need to slow down in order to accelerate again. And especially for like everything that you're saying, when you're stressed, you go into beta brain waves, so fight or flight, and that brings in more stress because you want to figure things out, and you're in beta, and if you don't break the cycle is not going to break itself. And if we don't build the right habits, then it just never ends up happening. And what you're saying, your calendar day, so from 8 to 6 p.m., 8 a.m. for 6 p.m., you're packed with meetings, you're packed with problems to solve. And then at night, you're exhausted. And so you're going to have a beer or three, and then you're going to smoke a joint. And this thing is going to start the next day. Like I meditate a lot. And having that in my life has not prevented me from being slapped in the face from the stress of not just being a founder, but also being an investor, because sometimes you have like 5% of your portfolio that's into something that's like the more risky part of your portfolio, and it just evaporates. And all of this is just stressful. And if you don't have the proper tools in order to deal with it, you're in trouble.
Yeah, man. And just like you say, man, it's hard. Same as me, I'm teaching this other people. I studied psychology. I know what brings a burnout. I know how to get out. I know like the ins and outs. I know everything. I know the routines. I have normally good routines, and
Mm,
still it also hit me. And part of it was also, like you say, like the external facts. Like if it's just like too much on the outside, and can like, and it happens to everyone. Like people die in your family, relationships end, markets crash, like I mean, we had
mm,
enough last year, and then when it's all coming at a time, like nobody is 100% safe from this. You never know. And it's
no
also
one
like
is.
physical things in your brain, like your nutrition. It can be so many factors, and just like being aware of that and doing the best we can to minimize the risk for it. And like prevention obviously is like the best thing to do that. What I would like to add to what you said is, I mean, the one thing I yourself, especially as a founder, and I would like to hear like your call on this as well, because
Mhm.
what I see in the teams I work with, like it's really like a correlation of like how the founders are handling their stuff and how stressed they are and how dense their calendars are, how much capacity they have actually to
Mm,
firefight and deal on things. And then like what I see is really like the culture trickling down on the people there as well. And little example from last week, I was here in Lisbon at an event, and I was talking. It was like a bigger project, like more than 200 people, and there was the head of staff. And when I meet a head of staff, I'm always like, "So how's it? Like how are your people doing? And how's culture? Like how's communication?" But he's like, "Yeah, people are happy in general, but like we're still actually our founders. They would really need some coaching, but they're not aware of it. And what we're actually doing is we're still in startup mode and firefighting everywhere, and everything is like not really organized, and everything is like stressful and hectic. You can tell like how that is
mm.
trickling down instead of like people who like sit down and think through the challenges in terms of people like beforehand and create like structures early enough to address these things. I was also like, so, and then how's like with people development and stuff? It's like, yeah, like nothing. There's no time
That
for
doesn't
this.
exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, interesting. And there's others. I mean, others I talk to also like to the head of staff. It's like, what are you doing here? Like, yeah, we're working like with big coaching providers, all our key players, like they get individual coaching, and we're really like taking care and taking space, and it's happening.
Are these remote companies or
Yeah.
are they
Yeah.
physical based? Yeah. It is so hard. If you'd asked me a few years ago, I would have said, man, remote work is the dream, and you can just do whatever you want, work from anywhere you want. And now now that I've been living through it for 18 months, it's not that simple on the individual level. It's not that simple on the team level, because you're not at the contact of those people on a day-to-day basis, and you interact with them. You never interact with them spontaneously. You never have like random coffee breaks with people. You never just go out for a beer. You never do all of these things, which are really important, not just for the well-being of the company, but for the well-being of the individual. And it's a lot harder to notice when something is not right when you're not directly facing the people. So how do you address that? You working with, I assume, mostly remote team as well. How do you like bypass that problem of not being in physical contact with these people?
That challenge every remote team has, right? I mean, there's no one solution for this all. I mean, you can read it up, like it's all the same. Like what to do as a remote team. You have remote team meetings, you have coffee hours, you make space outside of the thing, you do engaging things. I mean, the usual, that it's nothing new, right? What's maybe more interesting is like diving into like, what's your challenge? Because it's so individual. And we can, because that's what I do, I help people, and you just raised that challenge for you.
Yeah.
So how do you want to dive into this? Maybe
Yeah,
even more
absolutely.
interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
So how's it for you? What's your challenge there?
right now, I'm really lucky because bear market happened, and so we had a lot of people. We were working with a lot of people who are all extremely smart, extremely driven, and just all around good people, but who there was more of human fit than a business fit with. And the bear market happened, and just so the financial incentive for most kind of disappeared, and now the co-founding team that is being built again around us is, well, it's just working with different versions of ourselves who are like, they're more experienced and they know where they're going, and so it's becoming, it's really enjoyable. And when a question needs to be asked, it is asked. When a problem needs to be addressed, it is addressed. And voices are raised at times, but that's just part of the fun. Like, it's part of the conflict is part of human nature, and we have to go through conflict in order to deal, especially when you have multiple alpha males in the room. It will happen. And but that's also the way to get the most out of things. So right now, I'm very fortunate that I don't have to ask myself these questions, because whatever problem we see, we raise, and it is addressed before it needs to be implemented on. But before that, it was very much different, because we were still at the phase where we're like basically a project where you don't really have the good aspect of having a contract with people is that you know what you give and you know what you take. It's very clear. But in the space that we're living in, there's a lot of things that are left a little bit unsaid. Oh, you're going to get $500 this week. Here's what you need to do. And then you don't really necessarily realize how the thing is done, how much time is being dedicated to those tasks. And for me personally, for example, one of the most important things is deep work. I try to have as much of it as possible. I try to have at least one flow or deep work session during the day. And it's something that I've tried to pass on to people I've worked with, because I know how valuable it is for myself and for others and for the company. But you don't want to be the policeman. You don't want to be like, hey, did you do 4 hours of deep work today? Did you do your time? Even we've worked with very truthful people, very honest people, and so they would answer and they would play the game, but it's not a really cool position to be in. And so like it's all of these little things where I don't want to track people. You know, I don't want to have them give me an Excel sheet at the end of the week with like the time that they worked on each task and all of that. So it's not really a problem, I guess. I don't know where I went with this, but it's more of it changes everything, and I still don't see the perfect solution for all these things.
And it's so beautiful how you describe it, because like everything you just said, like drives to this one word of trust. That's what it comes down to, right? If there's trust, you don't have these challenges. And that's connecting also to this question, like, so how do you deal with the stressful things with remote life, remote team dynamics? And it comes down to trusting each other,
Absolutely.
building up the trust to open up. And what I see in my experience is like the most important aspect of this whole thing, like how to tackle it as a team. I really want to like, okay, shit, we have this tension and this stuff, and we have the challenges, and I have the challenges, and others have too. Like you as a team, you need to find a way, like a space to address this and talk about this. And nobody's going to give it to you. It's never going to be there because it's always busy. Like you have to make space.
That's the tricky part.
To talk about the dynamics that are happening besides the product and the building and the community and the challenges, but just giving space to talk about like what's happening in between us, what's happening with me, and however that looks like. And like I can't tell you from the outside, because again, like every team is different, and it's just been so beautiful. Like one client, I was working with the founder, and then I just offered them, listen, like if you want, I can facilitate like a team session for you. And like that's what we started doing now. And we do the simplest thing ever. I mean, it's just like super simple time boxing of giving everybody 3 minutes to express what's there in terms of challenges, what is it there, and then talk about what is the question we actually want to tackle. And then it can be something like personal challenges, things in between the team, conflict, and I call it also like an exercise with the elephant. Like, what's the elephant in the room? Like, nobody is talking about it. And that can be stuff like depression. It can be stuff like, there's like underlying conflicts we're not talking about. I mean, it can be, I feel like our whole team is running in the wrong direction, but we have this group thing going on, and like we all don't want to acknowledge what's happening because we're just too busy building stuff without questioning ourselves, or we're not daring ourselves to question what we're actually doing here.
Yeah, that's super powerful, because it is when you don't have that trust, or put in other words, when you have people who don't trust themselves to be valued enough within the group, or that it is their place to say something, you have things that are left unsaid that shouldn't. Because it might not be as huge as we're going in the wrong direction and no one seems to notice it. It can be very, very subtle. Like you're working on this project and on this product, and there's this feature that has been in it, or that should have been, and everyone is so like focused and driven, and you have that one person who notices it but doesn't feel that it is their place. Because it's just happened that way. And I had this conversation. We had a woman work with us for a little bit, and I valued her, and I think that she was valued by the team, but she didn't seem to value herself as much, or didn't see that she was valued as much, and it puts that person into a weird position. Yeah, it is so important to take the time away from the project to build the humans who are building the project. But that's also one of the problems that you raise, where, well, we're working remotely. There are time constraints. It's 9 a.m. here. It's 9 p.m. there. So we only have this many meetings during the week. Do we really want to dedicate one to this that doesn't seem like a short-term priority, but which very much is a long-term priority? So it's all oh man, yeah.
Yeah, and there is no right or wrong answer to this. I mean, you as a team need to ask yourself that question, like, is our time now better spent with talking about what's happening in the team, or is now the time to grind and to build and to do things? I mean, there's like times for everything. And it's really hard like to define. And opinions differentiate as well. Like some people feel, oh, it's all good. Like, you have 8 people in the team and 5 feel like everything is going well. We don't need to talk about anything. And
the other 3 can just leave.
Completely left behind.
No.
And then it's like, and then normally what happens, you do that, what the most loudest, the biggest alpha male is this dictating to do, or the 2 biggest, oh yeah, we go on, no time, and then and then you gotta find mechanisms to communicate like really what's happening in the team. And that is so fucking difficult to get these mechanisms in place and this openness. And it comes down to like one of my favorite words these days. It's like decentralized leadership. Because when we're building this decentralized world, and what we all like allude to now is like, I mean, there is always hierarchies. Like there's the alpha male, right? The alpha person in the team. And that is already a hierarchy, no matter how you're like organized when you're in a team meeting. And if you want to have real decentralization, you need to like empower everyone in the team and distribute the leadership and give everybody a part of it, because naturally not everybody will take it by themselves, and some don't want, and that is also fine. But then having these roles clearly defined, like of what people actually want to do in their teams and what not, and like because it all comes down to like, are people feeling valued and happy and trusted in the position they're in? Doesn't mean that everybody needs to be like a leader and go to the front, but it's about like, is everybody happy with what they are doing, and are we all aligned in what we do, and are we working together in the best possible way for us right now, or are we losing productivity? And then, I mean, that's another abstraction layer in a way. Like, why are we here? Like what is the reason for our existence? What are our values? And if we say like part of our values might be, oh, we do this project for fun. We want to have fun together. Then it does just make sense to like put some time aside to have fun together, because that's part of your purpose as a team. And being clear about that, like, why are we doing what we're doing?
The whole decentralized leadership thing is so important. And that, you know what? That's actually why I care so much about this AR filter, because to the rest of the world, I'm not my person. It's not focused on me. I'm the founder. I'm the leader. This gives an online persona that does the job, and it takes away a lot of the ego. And what it allows for, there's something that I've been trying to do for years, but that my ego snuck up on me often and prevented me from doing. I always wanted to grow away from the CEO type, like the big person in the middle who says the things that other people do, because I realized 2-3 years ago that it just didn't work. But even after realizing it, I was still playing the part. I was still telling people like, no, this is the right way to do things, so you should do it that way. Oh, you have ideas that go against this judgment, then here is a very elaborate and very intelligent demonstration that my idea is better. And it always works, because I don't know, you have, even if you're try to remove yourself from that role a little bit, you still have that legitimacy, because it's still built into you a little bit. And so if you don't actively do it, it's just, I started to call myself a facilitator. And that's where I thought you and I have a framework to build, because this has helped me a lot. By being the facilitator on the team, I'm the person that I've thought about the project more than anyone on the team. I've spent more time on it. I've like flipped it around. I'm the holder of the vision, so I'm the holder of the thing that holds it together. But I wouldn't be anything without the parts that it is holding together. Like, and when there's this question of like, who's more valuable, the leader or the employees, there's no answer to that question, because none exist without the other. That's the duality of life. And the facilitator thing is really interesting, because it allows you to be, your role is not to direct, your goal is not to dictate, it's to notice all the strengths and all the best resources and all the best ideas, and to put them together. And sometimes they come from you, sometimes they don't. And so you have to, my process right now I'm at a part of the phase where I've been withdrawing myself too much. So I've been trying to let things just happen, and then I point out and I give my thoughts, but I don't make them decisive. But we got to a point where we had 5 very smart people in the room saying very smart stuff, and we're not going anywhere, because if you don't have a direction, then you just keep like going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And so yeah, there's a right balance to this, right? How do you like, if I'm the founder that you're trying to coach into decentralized leadership, how do you coach me into it? What's the framework? What do you try to pass on to me?
I don't work with like fixed frameworks of like prescriptions. This is what we do, like strength, weakness, game plan, action. Like, I don't believe that is much of a code. It's like a training thing. You can go like get the theory and like act out a plan. So it's very individual. And like in your case, what was like coming up to me a lot, it's like when you say like you are a facilitator, I mean, it comes down to the question, like, who are you as a leader? And if you see yourself as a facilitator, for me, like this image of a gardener was coming up a lot. It's a beautiful analogy, right? Like you as like the founder, like it's your garden, and your team is like the plants and the trees and the veggies, and your job is to make this thing flourish. And you do everything you can. You facilitate, enough sunlight, enough water, the right conditions to everything to grow, and to grow in harmony. And just what you described was, and you were withdrawing a lot, and then things grow like in a way you don't want it to grow. So you got to intervene again and see, okay, where do I need to cut maybe, or like to add something that was coming up. So when I'm talking with founders, like, all of them I talked to so far, like everyone is to some degree, I want to move towards like DAO structures, decentralized leadership. I don't want hierarchy. Like, that's what everyone is about. But then it comes down to like, what's beneath it in you? Like, who are you as a leader? Like, are you still micromanaging people? And then when we like look into this thing, like what are your actions actually? Yes, you talk about DAO, you talk about decentralization, but what do you do? Like in your meetings, are you subtly imposing your things? Like are you getting into the meetings with like, this is my idea, who's for it and who's against it? Or are you like the one like, okay, here is the question, what is your ideas? And like, you come in last in a way, right? So people often think they want it, but then there is a lot of underlying fears, which can then be rooted in like childhood stuff and traumas, and like the old Web2 world as well. Like this whole world, how it's functioning, it's still so hierarchical. So we carry this whole burden with us, and the whole decentralization is really such a big mind shift of letting go, and because it is scary to let go. And that's for everyone, right? Like, I mean, your money depends on it. Like, you're giving away power to other people, and that is so difficult. Looking into the fears of the founder is very often like a thing. And I think we talked about this a little bit as well. Like, how about your fears, like in this whole process? Because you're like nodding there, like
I view the growth that I've had these past few years in sort of a U-shaped curve, where the first part, the first leg down, was I was basically going to neutral, letting go of all the deeper darkness, the deeper stuff that was really preventing me from doing anything. And then I think 2 or 3 years ago, I reached the neutral part, and then I started like the expansion. And right now, I don't think I could pinpoint any specific fears that are relating to me as a founder, or to me as or like to the project. It really is directly me as a person. You get past certain things on from your parents, from your from the way you've been brought up, and for me, there have been these things around like self-love that have had an impact on me being present, and on overextending my dopamine system. And so right now I'm at the phase where I'm finally through a mixture of meditating and doing specific types of yoga, and doing things that make me happy and that drive pleasure. I'm trying to basically align all of this. And what's really interesting is that as I'm doing this work, everything in my life as a founder is changing as well. I'm more and more surrounded by super smart people. There are more and more good opportunities that are coming this way. And that's actually one of the things that I was excited to touch base on, because it's often forgotten, where as founders, as people, as career-oriented individuals, we look to the outside for I should do this. Oh, I need to do this. This is my next goal. This is what I need to achieve. And there's this, and I was actually thinking about this when I was going a power walk yesterday, the idea of the compounding effect. If you read a book every month, then after 10 years, you've read all of this and it's compounded. And so it's made you all that much smarter. And then I realized that if you do only the external work, the knowledge part, and you don't do the inner work of finding out what your fears are, finding out what your biases are, finding out what your parents have passed on to you that is hindering your goal, then you're just limiting the compounding effect. And I wanted to touch base on this with you because I did a session with you, so I know what it is that you're doing and I know how powerful it is. And it's just reinforcing a pre-existing belief that I had, obviously. But is that something that you put a lot of focus on, a lot of emphasis on, that inner part? Or is it just integrated into your discourse?
It's the most crucial part, like your deep beliefs you've built up in your time, right? I mean, when you do coaching, you can always do like the thing. I mean, you want to change something in your life in a way, right? Like people come to you because something they want change in their life. And then you ask like, okay, what is your goal? What is it? What is your vision? What do you want to do? And then the very big question is, where is this vision or goal coming from, right? Is that from a part of you which is compensating for you being, like bullied as a child, and all you want is to get rich and, show off and like pay all that back what you like didn't have when you were young or something, and then that is like your goal. But the question is that like your real goal? Is that just like a underlying belief you want to get rid of, and like deeper within you, there's like, I mean, there is more meaningful things to do in life. And then diving into these dynamics and looking, okay, and we all have like this achieving part which wants something, and then we have this voice in us which tells us you're not good enough, like something's holding me back, and then you're judging yourself for not sticking to your routines, which creates a lot of confusion in your brain, and you think like, who the fuck am I? What's going on? And there's like all this tension in the team as well. Is that because of me? And you're taking things personally, and it's so many things to handle. I mean, even for me without a team, I'm just dealing with life. I mean, it's all already there, and just giving that a little bit of order and putting the attention like inside, like closing your eyes. And like, I love working with these parts, which we were touching on right in our session as well, to say, okay, like that is, like that part of me that is super ambitious, and that is the part that keeps criticizing me. And they scientifically proven, I mean, there's a lot of research on it. They kind of have their life by their own. When you're schizophrenic, you have different personalities. They become the extremes. But bottom line, we're all schizophrenic and have these different voices in our heads. And just acknowledging this, there's this beautiful quote of like, if you can hold two opposing opinions in your mind at one time, that's like second level intelligence, right? That's the opposite of what Trump, that's the opposite of what politicians do. Like give simple solutions to everything. It's just, no, it's fucking complex, like even in the inner world. And then acknowledging that and zooming out a little bit, zooming into your intuition, even on a spiritual level, and feeling into it, tapping into your intuition, like what is it that's really important, that really matters, and then go in that direction.
Yeah, so you were telling me that another important part beyond the inner journey for the founder is the systems that they set in place. And I'm obviously very, very interested in that.
Yeah, me too. So, I mean, most of the clients I'm working with are like early stage startups, like 8-10 people. And for them, it's not a big deal, right? I mean, the structure, it just like it's so small, you can talk to each other, you can relate to it, right? Like you're similar size, so you don't really need big procedures and processes in place. So it really comes down to like the inner work of the and the role modeling of the founder. Like, what is it he wants to create, and how does he create the structures? However, and that's an area I'm not an expert in, but I really want to become an expert because it's so fascinating. And that is this whole world of how do we structure ourselves decentrally, right? And there's like all these frameworks which have been there longer than blockchain, how communities organize themselves, how other organizations who have been decentralized. It's not a new idea, right? To have like flat hierarchies and organize yourself decentralized. So like these concepts of holacracy, sociocracy, which give super clear guidelines and models in how you can structure yourself. And I'm not an expert. I'm in touch with a lot of experts, and I hope to learn more about it. But I think that can be a very powerful tool for founders as well to like dive into these ideas.
Yeah.
And early on create structures, and there's systems around it. This morning I was talking with Joost van Schouten, who's like the founder of Nesta, which is a tool which is organized in circles. Like it helps you to connect like your decisions, your governance, your task management, what everything you do to organize it actually in circles. And if you start to implement these tools early enough, right, then you can grow into these decentralized structures instead of the challenges I mentioned before with this other company I was talking about, right? I mean, they grew hierarchically up to 200, right? And then they still have these structures. And if you want to go from there, it's just
so hard. Yeah, because the gravity is insane. I actually have a friend of mine who has launched something like what you're mentioning. A group of freelancers got together, and the way they do things is they have all of these individual people and all of these individual skills. And when the need arises, so when there's a specific mission, they form a team for it. And this lives as a living and breathing organism. They have systems in place to make the organization grow, but it is very well balanced between the organization and the individual. And what actually you made me think of is that this is super important for the team that wants to build a decentralized organization, even more specifically because eventually there's no wall, there's no frontier between the team and the community. You want as much as possible for every member of this organization to have a say in the governance, in the product development. And so you have to build a feedback loop that gets them in. But where I think you'll very much agree with, because it's basically what you're saying, is if the person who was there at the beginning, or the group of people that were there at the beginning, can't delegate to people who are close to them, how are they ever going to delegate to people who are far from them in the system?
Yeah, it's a philosophical shift, right? From having a community manager as a function who's like managing the community, instead of like actually merging with the community, becoming one with it, really inviting it in and getting the full power of it. Very different, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's go ahead.
Yeah.
You're the guest. It's you first.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I myself am so much on the verge of like exploring these whole ideas and concepts. I've been part of a DAO, and I really want to get back to a DAO. There's like a DAO called Talent DAO, and they're researching on decentralized leadership. So I'm very much drawn to it. I have a call with them next week, so I might like be involved in that in the future. I don't know. Gotta taste into it. But it feels to me like this is really like a missing link in this whole thing. It's like the actual structure, like when you want to be a DAO and decentralized, and then it seems to me like people think we have these government rules in place and the code is taking away the need of organizing us because now we have like voting and decisions are made. And what I heard from AstroDAO from Jordan, who's like the DAO maker for the Near ecosystem, right? I was like having an interview with him as well. And he was like, yeah, it all comes down, like it all doesn't help. You still have the people conflicts. No matter the government model you do, no matter the voting mechanism and the participation, like you always have like these conflicts. So you just need mechanisms to deal with the human side. That's like, it's never going to go away.
Yeah.
Like even if on paper everything is fair,
and we wouldn't want them
behind
to.
the scenes, yes, behind the scenes there is politics. Like,
Yeah.
and I heard that from different ecosystems as well. And then, or then there is like a position for like a DAO moderator, which is distributing funds. And then reality is that is again like a position of super big power, although it's all about DAOs. And then it's all like politics and games and, people backstabbing and shitting each other. It's really interesting. Like even that happening like in the DAO world. So I think, and I don't know if that's right, but I think we're like all experiments never fail. So we're all experimenting on this at this time. It's like the earlier you can manage to get like these structures and utilizing these proven systems of decentralized organization. And once you have that in place, and once you have a functioning, living organism, right? I needed to think of Frederick Laloux reinventing organizations, like this teal organism, which is like really living and breathing, or like the Peter Senge thing of a learning organization. The book is from the fucking 70s, where he was like developing these concepts. I can highly recommend The Fifth Discipline, Peter Senge. It's not new ideas to make these organizations which are breathing and living. So if you manage to get this group of people breathing and living and reacting to the environment, and then agree on government rules which are working for everyone, that is probably the way forward.
Yeah, and probably the next steps, and then in a few months you have something that changes, and you need to have the proper mechanisms in place to make sure that things just don't get stuck. But that's what I was saying before when I was talking about conflicts within the team. They're so important. If you don't get conflict, you don't get progress. And that's true for relationships as well. My partner right now, we fought so much in the beginning, and I told her many times, like, this is work. We're doing the work right now. It's not for nothing. Just stick around, and you'll see that we've it's not been easy every time, but it's been worth it. And now that I think about it, I've actually told all of my past girlfriends that, and she's the one that benefits from all of this. But yeah, it's conflict is important, and you should have that's why I think the whole Twitter thing with Elon Musk and free speech, it is important that we get both sides of the subject, as long as we educate people on, like, try to understand the person on the other. You have different opinions, and that's good, and that's just the world. There's polarity. Not everyone's going to like everything because we don't have the same background. We don't look at things from the same time frame. Like, for example, with us and what we're building with JPEG and Project Magenta, we are trying to bridge the gap. So we're trying to bridge the gap between people who are underprivileged and people who are very privileged. And obviously, they're going to have different approaches. Obviously, the person who's fighting for their life, who's fighting for survival, is going to be more short-term focused and minded because they have to eat. They have to provide shelter for themselves and their family. Whereas for that other person, it's more of a, hopefully I make a shit ton of money in the next 5 years, or hopefully like this or that happens. And like, it's different. And so it doesn't mean that any of these people are wrong. It just means that they have a different outlook and a different way to look at things and different priorities. And the other thing that that made me react in what you were saying is the problem with the legal system right now is that when something is set, it is so hard to move. That's why you have laws that apply to us right now that were written like 150 years ago. And that just doesn't make any sense for anyone. And I think that's one of the biggest things that these systems need to be mindful of. And you have no idea how focused I am on this portion of the conversation, because this is work that I'm going to have to be doing in the next little while. And so, yeah, you're so right. We need to have the vision, to be aligned on the vision, and we need to have the proper systems to make sure that we compose with the different people who want to work and build toward that mission.
Yeah, and it's such pioneering work, right? I mean, there's and it's like just expanding. Like there's so many examples. Like I'm so excited to like to talk with more people with like bigger DAOs as well, to dive more into DAO. Like how have they done it? You know, and the whole legal framework, right, which you're touching on as well. I mean, like that's all ahead of you guys, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's funny that you say it's all pioneering, because it is and it's not. It's pioneering because it just takes another approach and it tries to shift the paradigm. But that's what people in Greece were trying to do thousands of years ago. They were trying to build organizations, human groups that were fair and somewhat decentralized, or were like the power of voice. And then, yeah, greed happened and trust was misplaced, and then people seized power and just kept it for hundreds of years. But the main problem was that we didn't have the proper information systems. It was really hard there was no transparency, there was no nothing. And so now we're finally at a place where technology is advanced enough that it can help us build these big organizations. I wrote down conflict resolution at scale when you were talking, because that's what we want to do. For example, I was talking to our CMO before, and his plan is that in the next 18 months, that at the end of the next 18 months, we have 20,000 members. And so with 20,000 members, well, you need to be, the system needs to be solid, because it's not just like 5 people talking across the table and who are very much aligned with each other. You have like people who are poor, people who are very poor, people who are less poor, and you need to compose with all of this. And that's where I think this sheds an even brighter light on the whole facilitator thing, because if I really put myself in the shoes of a facilitator and not of a dictator, and that people around me do that as well, and people around them do that as well, and around them, then you have managed to build an organization where people actually listen to each other and take out what really matters out of each other. Oh, I really want to make as much money as I can in 10 years. But does that matter more than the person who's trying to eat today? And you move forward and you talk and you build something that's more sustainable, I think.
Yeah, you're touching on a lot of points at a time, and they're all intertwined, right? Because I mean, if you talk with the different groups which are involved, right, like the rich and the poor, like when I think of conflict, I mean the rich one doesn't even have a conflict or anything, right? Like with another person, it's just like the whole system is just like imbalanced and favoring, or like it's just like where it's at the moment, and the players in there, like, and the poor one doesn't have a direct conflict with the big one. They're just like victim of the circumstances in a way.
Absolutely. It actually ties into what we're doing right now, where there will be NFTs in our upcoming ecosystem, and we're trying to determine how to distribute them in the most fair way possible, in a way that benefits everyone who gets them and that doesn't take away from anyone. And so, for example, the term pay to play comes up a lot, because our CMO he's very vocal about wanting to create something that is free to play. And my perspective on it is that it should be as free to play as possible, but that pay to play for the people who don't have the time but have the money should be beneficial for the people who play for free. And so that's what we're trying to do in our upcoming mint. We're trying to make sure that you have people who have time and skills, and you have people who have money, and you have people who have a mix of both. And we want to try to set it up so that the people who just have money can contribute and can partake and can benefit, and that the money that they put into the ecosystem actually benefits the people who have less of it and who have more time. It's a very interesting concept and a very interesting dilemma, because if we do this well, then maybe we are working towards building a new society of people who actually understand, like, oh, this person has money, but it doesn't make them a bad person because I'm actually benefiting from it. And oh, this person doesn't have a lot of money, like they're from that other place in the world, and oh, but they're actually contributing, and we're actually, and if we, oh man, I get so excited talking about this, because if we do manage to build this, then it has, yeah, it's finally going to go back to doing something that Web3 was meant to do in the beginning, which was uniting.
What are the values behind this thing you're doing?
The one that I keep going back to is fair distribution of value. That's the one that I care about the most. I want to make sure that was the biggest problem in the origins of Web3. I mean, that was the biggest problem that I saw Web3 solving. Initially, I thought my always comparison is Amazon, of they're so good, they're extremely efficient, like efficiency masters, but they're also value extraction masters. And for me, Web3 was the opportunity to be able to maximize efficiency while maximizing fair value distribution. And so that's what I care about the most. There are a few others. We want people who work hard because that's important. We want people who are humble, all of that. But the guiding thing for me is definitely that one.
I mean, when you're saying for you, I mean, that's for you personally.
Yeah.
It sounds like, I mean, you're aligned in your project. Well, I mean, you're all aligned in your vision. And like, I'm just curious, like, did you put that into words, into like a thing, into like an agreement of like, wow,
No.
That's actually what we stand for like value distribution?
That's the power of this team, man. It's that one, my initial co-founder, Cosmos, he and I, we're just two peas in a pod. We get along very well, and we're always aligned that we cared about this space and we wanted to have a positive impact, and we care for others as much as we care for ourselves. We want this thing to be a success for us because we put everything in and we deserve it, and we want to be financially free. I want to build a family and all of that, and it's important, but we would not be okay with it being at the expense of other people. So he and I were always aligned. We never had to really like say it. It was always between us. And then now with the transformation of this project, it started with our CMO, he hasn't agreed yet. I hope that he does, but who will become a co-founder. And then a fourth person who hasn't given the final word yet, but he's acting like it. And I hope he does too, because he's a fantastic person. And now maybe a fifth person. And the one thing that we all care about and that we never had to discuss or anything, it was that we want to bridge the gap using Web3. And that's what I think things should be. I remember in my first business wanting to figure out the why, wanting to figure out what our values were. And so it became more of intellectual work of, trying to find the thing that has the most impact, that will inspire people and all of that. And it kind of corrupts it. Whereas here we came in and we're like, all right, let's do something good. And let's also make money for ourselves. And let's build something that benefits everyone who participates. And it's so fucking powerful.
Yeah, my thought of training, like it goes in some directions. And why I'm asking is, for everybody, it's not like I mean, we all know the company values in corporates, they're like hanging on the wall, nobody cares. It's more like a downer than an upper. It doesn't help. Like, I totally agree. And with your thing, it's so powerful. It's coming from the inside. It's real. It's coming from you. It's coming from your friends, from your founders. And you're like, that's us. So it's just like super amazing for the community as well to, like to understand this is why we do things. Like this big question of why is like, we all want to know why. As a kid, you want to know why can't I eat this? Like, you want to know everything.
Yeah.
Right. And it just makes a lot of sense to like put that why, not just, and it's humble enough to just like, yeah, we do this, but it's just an amazing thing to put it out there. Say like, we also like courageous enough to put it out there and say like, this is what we're here for. And the other thing, why it is also so can be very helpful. No matter what you're doing, like when you were talking about, like we want to do it like with the pay for mint stuff, like how we distribute between rich and poor. This is like what we're going to do. And I recently came across this this quote. It's my favorite one at the moment. Experiments never fail. So what you're doing there is like one big experiment for the sake of creating equality, right? And fair value distribution. And I can already tell you, like in a sense of whatever you're going to do there, people are going to game the system. It's not going to be 100% value distributed and fair. It's never going to be 100%, and that is fine. And just having these values as a guiding principle, like it's an infinite game what we're playing here. Like we're just trying to iterate and get better. And what's in the back of my mind, like, is as early as possible, like whatever you're trying to into that system you're building, to try these to build in these loops of, okay, where this is like one try and then there's going to be other tries and more tries, and we're just like, as a learning organization, this is like one of the tools that we're doing, and then we just keep on adapting and living that and getting, because we're so often trapped in this thought of, okay, this is the right thing to do, that's how we reach our goal. But this is like a big infinite game of like, we're trying and doing things for the rest of our lives, hopefully, with this thing, to try to improve things for the best. And this other quote, which is with me since ever, is yesterday's solution is creating today's problems, or today's solutions is creating tomorrow's problems. So whatever solution you're creating with that, it's gonna make new problems, like again, and that is good, that is normal. And then you go on the next iteration, like kind of a retro, and then like you keep improving on things.
It's the exact same thing as conflicts. You have to take some risks. You know that not all of them work. And I always go back. I played a lot of online poker, and I always go back to having a pair of aces. If you look at a pair of aces, you are subjectively convinced that you're going to win the hand. But if you're playing against one person, you're 80%. You have 80% chances to win. And you basically take away 10% for every new player that's added. And so that's just what life is. It's just statistics. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And you have to, you have to accept the fact. And I actually want to tie this back into what we were talking about, the cycles before, where you learn until you're ready to expand and really thrive. Because I think we go through these phases where you thrive, and you reach a point where, okay, it's going to be back to the drawing board, and you hit rock bottom, and then you go back up again. And on the short time frame, I've had quite a few thriving periods of like 2 weeks, 10 days, 3 weeks. But I'm still waiting for that long-term thriving period. And it's fucking coming. Like I can feel it. It's been the expansion has been, and I'm saying this, like I don't need to convince myself because I'm convinced of it. I'm saying this also because this is exciting for the people who are joining me in my projects right now, because like we're all going to take flight together. And that's super, I don't know how you use this information as an investor, but I think there's value in this, in understanding that like the past doesn't predict the future. You need to know where your founders are. You need to know who your founders are. How do you do this with anonymity? Like it raises all of these questions. Now I almost don't want to put my money anywhere until I've met the founders now. And until I felt like personally, like, okay, where are you on your journey?
And it's like you're speaking out a lot of my feelings and thoughts. Like I was talking with like venture capital friends of mine as well. And it was like, and I feel it might even be like a thing, like also that conversation, which I was mentioning before, like of a big company, which like feels like they don't have their shit together organizationally. And in terms of like people management, nobody's looking at that, right? Like everybody looks, oh, this is the project, this is the technology, this is the market, this is, the area they are focused in. and it comes down, it's like the most crucial thing. Like if your teams are not working together, like the project, I mean, possibly it's going to last long or but it's never going to thrive entirely sustainable on a long term, right? If you don't have the culture in the team.
It's so difficult.
Yeah, I don't know how, but I have this kind of research project in the back of my mind, like I'm talking to so many people and I have this qualitative information from like all these companies and I'm so excited, like to see which ones are going to make it, where if they're feeling this is an amazing team, you're definitely one of them. Like you're one of the few teams where I was asking you when we were speaking before, like, so how is it like in your team here? It's like, yeah, we all have space and express our emotions. And when anybody is down, there's like space for everything. And we have an awesome team culture. Like we don't need you basically, from the outside.
We want you, but we don't need you right now.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like so amazing. Cause like, the most project, like people are just challenged with this thing of team formation or an organization on a small level or like on a big level.
I just want to say, like for full transparency, that we were and we're still far from perfect. Like I don't think there's a perfect there's no perfect team, there's no perfect people, it just doesn't happen. And sometimes you're going to trust someone and you're going to be right, and sometimes you're going to trust the same person at a different time and be wrong. A lot of this thing also comes down to damn luck. Sometimes you're going to, like, who would have thought, I talked about it on the previous podcast, it's probably going to come up, but who would have bet against FTX? Honestly, like there are a few very, very smart people in this world who had maybe personally met SBF and just trust their intuition. And like Elon Musk claims that he does, that he met him or like that he talked to him, just called bullshit on him. But like, we're all wrong. I was planning on slowly like going there. I was actually seriously considering Luna as a long-term thing because I didn't even question it despite my better judgment, despite, like it just didn't make any rational sense. And yet, because you have millions of people in the world who trust it, it just like we're all sheep in the end. No matter how smart we are, how smart we think we are, we follow people we trust. And yeah, all of this to say there's no safe bet. So hedge your investments, diversify your portfolio, know your risk profile.
It's and I did not talk to anybody from Luna or from FTX, unfortunately. No, because
that would have been interesting.
I don't know, like how he's so interesting because that would be so really like because often it trickles down, not always, right? Sometimes they're like in the boardroom in the top, they just do their thing and nobody knows about it. I mean, people didn't know, but still, there's like a certain culture that can trickle down, like how unorganized things seem to be with the FTX thing. And if you, I mean, if there's any FTX people listening to this, please reach out to me. I'd really love to.
And me too.
Also Luna people.
And me too, actually. And if they reach out to you, please tell me. Because what's really cool in what you're saying and is that things work until they don't. And so you can rationalize any type of behavior, and that's what these people are really good at doing. When you have a dictator, when you have a manipulator, what they are very good at doing is making you do things that are beyond what you would normally feel like doing, and they rationalize it. Have you watched the Epstein show? The Epstein documentary on Netflix?
No.
Holy shit. Just watch it. Honestly, it is mind-boggling that someone was so good at manipulating other people that they were capable of doing this at that scale. It is just, for me, it is the absolute masterclass in how to be an asshole at scale and how to be a manipulator at scale. And it shows you, it says a lot about humans and how to. You see this in scams and rug pulls as well. Like they're able to identify weaknesses in people, and they're able to identify triggers, emotional, psychological triggers, to generate a behavior. And I was when talking, I thought back to I thought I saw a thread on Twitter about SBF and a conversation that he had with one of his team member. And when you think about it through the context of the collapse of FTX is just like, oh, okay, it makes sense. Makes sense that this type of person would end up in this position. But when you're in it, when FTX is still a multi-billion, very much trusted company, that you are the genius, the whiz kid of crypto and all of that, then when you're the person on the other side of it, what are you going to do? Because like that person is a god. The company that you're working on, that you're working for, will make you one of the most wealthy people, one of the most respected people in your profession. And so it justifies a lot of things.
Yeah, there is a lot of psychopaths
Yeah.
in boardrooms and on top of, obviously, crypto companies as well. And it's normal, it's natural. Just like you said, like they know how to manipulate. They know how to play with other people's emotions. I mean, that's the psychopath thing, right? They don't have the empathy themselves, so they train 100% perfectly to like be able to mimic and play with the emotions of other people. And that's what's happening in the world. I mean, they are there. I mean, it's like, it's also never black and white, right? There's this psychopath checklist or like this test where you can like see, and there's like a lot of books written about it. Yeah, but ultimately those people end up in these positions. And that's this world. And it's normal. I mean, this whole crypto world is not so different compared to the world outside, the economic world outside, on steroids, right? I mean, the
Absolutely.
whole market, the charge is like stock market on steroids with the same emotions, just like all a bit more crazy. It's the same startup scene, just everything a bit more crazy because like more community, more competition, everything more fast paced, the technology development, everything is like
the
faster.
volatility, the financial opportunity,
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, everything. And still we still have our same brains and our same emotions, which we fall trapped on. And then we come back to the beginning of the conversation. How do we handle this as a human being? Like without breaking down emotionally, also like these financial things, right? Like when markets go up and down, or like FTX, or like with fucking Luna. I lost a lot of money with UST because I just thought like, yeah, it's like
so safe.
Stablecoin with the biggest yield. Like, I don't even want to play the Luna. You know, I keep it safe and put it in a stablecoin. And then it's like, okay, lesson learned, you know. Or another life lesson thing.
You know what? This is probably actually the best segue into what might be the last part of this conversation. Let's talk about psychedelics, man.
Oh, yeah.
I initially wanted to bring it up just from the beginning because it's an important component. It's a point where you and I both met. Like, just talk to me about psychedelics, the role they've played in your life, and how they seeped into how you approach coaching and all of that.
I also think we should have started the conversation with it.
Yeah.
Like I like starting my when I have presentation and talks, I'm like, who's into psychedelics? And then everybody listens. My intro with psychedelics, interestingly enough, I was never like the party drug guy. And so maybe 7-8 years ago, yoga friends of mine told me about this thing where they would go into the room with like this guy from the Netherlands, and everybody would drink something and then vomit in buckets and get like crazy epiphanies about things. And she didn't even drink or smoke or anything. I was like, what the fuck? What are you doing there? And then I got curious and learned about ayahuasca, and just out of curiosity, I like went to one of these events, and that was like my first actual psychedelic substance experience back then. And it was super amazing for me as a psychologist, as a yogi, as a meditation practitioner, like that's such a beautiful possibility to observe your mind, right? Stan Groff, one of the pioneers, right, always said like psychedelics can be what a magnifying glass is for a biologist with your mind. It can give you like a deeper understanding of how you function, or how your whole system functions, besides spiritual possibilities, whatever, like might come up. And that sparked my interest. And from there, I went to more ceremonies. From there, I was reading up and learning about the whole research on LSD and psilocybin and MDMA. And I've been following that also, like from a scientific standpoint, as a psychologist. I find it super interesting. And yeah, and then I like tried that, and I was like replicating in a way the protocols of the therapy sessions with friends and with myself, where we went into, from the beginning, it's always been super intentional and not like the party thing for me. And that's how I've been using it. And it has been of tremendous benefit for my life. I just like understood myself better. It actually made me spiritual in a way. I had these experiences where I just was at this point, this is what I experience. I now decide to believe it, whatever, any other state of consciousness is. But what I'm experiencing right now is reality for me, full stop, because that's what I experience. And since then, like, it's been like a shift from being agnostic to there might be whatever I don't know,
there might be something.
No, I believe my experience. I mean, I still don't know, but for myself, I just decide to believe this is like my reality.
Yeah, there's this.
And then.
No, I was just wanted to respond to this. No, the whole belief to see or see to believe, two groups of people in the world. I was very much a see to believe too. Like, I need scientific proof in order to believe in something. And these last few years have showed me that believing things will make them happen sometimes. That there are forces, there are things, flows, I don't know how to call them, to the web3 people that might listen to this. But it's psychedelics help in that way. Sorry, I cut you off. Where did you want to go?
I love it. Believe to see and see to believe. That's exactly what I was talking. I was shifting from the one as well. Exactly. That was the shift in my life in a way at some point. Yeah. And then I got more and more into that work, learned with the Mind Institute, with like people who do this professionally, and started just like supporting like people on a small scale with it. And I still love doing this. And that's mainly with integration coaching, just like preparing people for the experiences and giving integration. Like, integration means literally becoming whole. So whatever you experience, you want to integrate into your life to change something, right? Otherwise, you don't really need to do this. Or you can do it for fun. I mean, it's also nice to have like the intention of like just having fun together, and that can be.
I mean, and one can get to the other.
Argue with that.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's what I was going to say. Where I think you've had probably the textbook optimal introduction and experience with psychedelics. Just exploration from A to Z, and self-exploration, and just curiosity, and being accompanied by the right people. Whereas I've had the complete opposite experience of did MDMA for the first time, I think in 2014, and from then on, for like 3 or 4 years, my experience through these substances was purely quite destructive, and the guiding principle was, how fucked up can I get? And that was my exploration. It was an interesting one. I don't regret it per se, but I wish someone would have come in at the beginning and told me, hey, if you want to do things a little bit better, if you don't want to mess yourself up too much, if you want to really make the most out of it, have the right balance between fun and learning, this is how you should approach it. And slowly it's morphed into pretty much not doing drugs anymore, but when I do them, do exactly what you're saying, of very intentionally. And all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make a ritual around it. Even these days, I don't really smoke a lot of weed anymore, but when I do, I put an intention in it. And I'm thinking, all right, this is what I want out of this. This is, and it changes everything. There's no more anxiety. There's no more feeling shitty the next day or having the wrong energy. It's just, you feel amazing. That's also why I care about talking about psychedelics, because that's how we start to educate, and where we give the proper guideline to people on how to do things, and we open the conversation, because that's the one thing that's lacking. It's not a matter of legalization or not legalization. It's a matter of education. If you have the proper education, then you can just let people do whatever they want, because then it's their responsibility. They're going to, if you're not just being told, no, don't do that, and you're being told, hey, if you do this, this is probably the best way to do it. And if you do it that way, these are the risks. then hey, we're all adults here. So
Yeah, 100% agree. And that's where I see my mission as well. I mean, in Web3, there's a lot of psychedelics around. People do it, um, and I mean, I'm not prescribing anything or tell people what to do. I just love encouraging people to like, yeah, look what's possible.
yeah,
Just what you described. I mean, you can utilize the substance for personal growth instead of using them for escape from
yeah,
whatever is there, what you don't want to look into. And that is such a big difference. I mean, the one is kind of abuse and the other one is celebration, almost, you could say. and,
absolutely.
and growth. And I mean, it's a two-edged sword. Oh, it's a super sharp sword, right? It's so powerful. It fucking messes with your system. There is dangers connected with it. I mean, MDMA or like overuse of any substance is like always like a challenge. And at the same time, they have like so much potential in so many different directions as well. And I mean, the one is like the whole healing thing with the therapeutic approach, like what's happening, like where John Hopkins and Labs and all these guys are doing amazing work with like the therapeutics. There's the PsyDAO, which I'm connected with as well, like who are supporting psychedelic research actually, and like supporting there.
I didn't know about that.
Super cool. Yeah, and that is all on the healing part, on the therapy part of like, okay, I'm replacing conventional therapy with psychedelic assisted therapy, which is like super important. There's a lot of unanswered question. It's an elite thing as well. It's super expensive. It's not going to be easy, blah, blah, blah. But nevertheless, it's like, it's opening up the whole discussion for the world, like about these substances, which is awesome. And it's helping people, bottom line, like the studies are so amazingly convincing in terms of the numbers, how they help. And then what I'm more focusing on is like the whole growth, self consciousness and creativity side. I know so many people. I think I know 5 who started their Web3 projects out of like psychedelic journeys.
That makes sense.
Mostly had like ayahuasca journeys and then kind of got this download. Oh my gosh, this is how to change the world. Okay, message received, let's go and do it. And out of that, like projects or Marvin, the polka dot guy.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he was very vocal about it as well.
For me, it wasn't the, I genuinely think that it played a huge role in where I am today. So maybe it wasn't like an instant download of, ooh, this is what I need to build, but it participated in making me into the person that would get there eventually. But for example, one of the, I've experienced, I've experimented with ketamine quite a bit. I find it it's a very useful substance as well. And very good for introspection and very good for having the psychedelic effects without the violence of LSD, for example. And so I've done a few trips, and it's during one of those trips that I realized, oh, like when you're between two things, you have a tendency to try to hold on to both. Like people who are in a relationship, it's not going super well. They meet someone super cool, and they're very interested in that new relationship, but they don't want to let go of the past. That's basically where I was at with my 2 businesses, with the Web3 business and the other business that I was in. And then one day I went into this meditation, this substance enhanced meditation, and it took me a few hours to get there, but a few hours in, and I got to this place where I was like, okay, you know what? This is where I need to put all of my attention and my energy in, because if I do it, then it will bring success to everything in my life, my past, my present, and my future. What I really liked about what you said in the beginning about the retreats is the reset part. Those substances are so good because when done right, they allow you to take a huge step back, look at yourself from another perspective, and basically rebalance, reweight everything. Oh, this fear was huge. It's not that important, actually. It's just I've been so focused. I've been putting it so much. I've been giving it so much energy that it's taken a huge spot in my mind. but it's not actually that important. And so, yeah, all of this is so.
And there's another beautiful circle back to what we talked about. Yeah, remember about the fears of the founders and stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, you have like all these different fears and parts and judgments in yourself. And in the MAPS Institute for the ketamine therapy, they actually use this model of internal family systems in order to prepare people for psychedelic experiences.
Oh.
So you would like ask your different parts if they are all okay to go into the experience, or if there's some resistance from some part you might not be aware of. And then also what they found out, even without telling people about this whole concept of there's parts and there's like yourself, people would report exactly that naturally in the state in psychedelics, no matter if it's like ketamine or LSD. Like people are like, oh, this is like this connected state of like who I am, and I can see detached, just what you described. Oh, these are my fears and my things and my parts and my stories. I'm engaged in. That's the story. I can see the story, but I'm outside of the story, and reset and understand and take a different angle and perspective on things.
Yeah, it helps you objectivize your life a little bit.
Yeah, very, very often. Yeah.
What a cool conversation. I know you have other engagements, and so I'm gonna.
Yeah, I would love to, because also like taking one last circle back, because it's just been a recent, big experience for me as well. Like talking about psychedelics, like whoever's listening to this, I also had like the most terrifying experience kind of recently on psychedelics as well. That was like in September when I was like having my burnout thing that actually happened in an ayahuasca ceremony, where I went into the ceremony like not in a good state, not in a good mindset. And this whole setting was, I wouldn't blame the setting. It was like mainly myself, like the mindset I was in, and there's nothing to regret afterwards. However, it put me into like a psychedelic emergency mode where I needed help. Never had that before. Like part of my ego died as well, which said, oh, I'm always good on psychedelic. I can handle it. I'm, like helping other people with this. It expanded my horizon. It made me learn. It made me humble about the whole thing, because it's really not just like another thing to do. It's really a big thing if you go, especially like on like higher doses or like stronger psychedelics. So it's really a two-edged sword. But yeah, so whoever like wants to try, like do it, but do it
carefully.
People you really trust and carefully, and get good guidance, and like really good guidance. Like don't do it because of FOMO. Just really listen to yourself. It's the right time and the right place. And then
I think some of my most fruitful experiences have been quote unquote bad experiences, because I don't know, it puts you in a very vulnerable state. Yeah, it just pushes you to look deeper than you've looked before, to look more in the face of your fears than you have before, and that's where most of the growth happens. And I think I've heard it from somewhere, but when they say that in a psychedelic session you do 10 years of growth, like there's so much truth to that.
Yeah, 10 years of therapy, right?
Yeah.
And I so much agree. I mean, that experience, this whole experience of breaking down in the ceremony, and like months and weeks of depression afterwards, and like it was like my darkest time in my life. And just like you said, now like it's been necessary in my life as well, because I had never been there. I hadn't seen it, and it makes me a better person. It makes me a better coach. And I just see from there's like so much depth it's giving myself for like further growth.
Absolutely.
And Osho said like the deeper the roots, the higher the branches of the tree, right? And that's like the thing I kept telling me, and I agree. But if you do it for the first time, maybe you don't want to aim for that,
No, first time, perfect dose, perfect setting, and perfect people, and they're like good ground rules. Before we cut this off, who are the people that you want to talk to these days? Who are you looking for? Who should reach out to you?
FTX people, please.
Luna people.
Yeah. Please come here for some therapy and like an exchange. Yeah, and then really anybody like in Web3 who's excited, like who's inspired by what I do, and who's interested in what I do. And I'm super excited to just talk to people in this space and learn.
That's awesome.
That's what I do.
And I can vouch for him. I've done a session, it's top notch, and it will help a lot of people into either you're just starting with your introspective work or you're advanced. There's a lot of value in it. Thanks, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank
What
you.
another beautiful conversation for the books, and
Yeah.
I look forward to the next one already.
Yes. Many more to have, my friend, and
Yeah.
all the best with your endeavors. It sounds amazing what you're doing.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
all the best. And I really believe in you.
Thanks. I appreciate
Thank you
it.
so
It goes
much.
straight to my heart.
The universe sings.